Hey everybody, it's Tyler Austin from Midgard Strength and Conditioning. Thank you so much for watching. So today I want to do a quick review on what are, in my opinion, the best lifting flats or powerlifting flats on the market. These are the Reebok Power Lite Mids. I hope I got that name right. It has kind of a weird name to it, but I believe it's Power Lite Mid. If I didn't get that right, I know I'll hear about it in the comments. Either way, they're made by Reebok and they're pretty hard to mistake. So I absolutely love these things. I've had them for about 6 months now, and these have become one of my favorite lifting shoes of all time. I've tried a lot of different lifting shoes, and these are one of my favorites. Probably my favorite for deadlifting. So a few months, well, about a year ago, I decided to give lifting and flats a little bit more of a chance. I've always personally been a heeled guy. I've always liked squatting in heeled shoes and even deadlifting in heeled shoes. It was always been my preference for the majority of the time I've been training. But I wanted to give squatting and deadlifting more of a chance with flats. And at first I didn't like it very much, but over time it started to grow on me, particularly in the deadlift, and at that time I decided I need to get a dedicated lifting flat. So at that point I was just deadlifting and squatting and just kind of a more, it wasn't a sneaker, but more of a casual shoe with a flat sole, which worked okay. It was fine. The shoes actually worked pretty well for it. But it's always best to have a dedicated lifting shoe, whether you want a heeled shoe or a flat-soled shoe. It's always best to have a dedicated lifting shoe. So looked around, I eventually decided to get these Reeboks, and I'm absolutely not disappointed with my decision. I absolutely love these things. I've been using these things almost exclusively for the last 6 months, and like I said, it has definitely become my favorite lifting shoe for the deadlift, my favorite deadlifting shoes. I definitely like squatting in them too. The jury's still out for me personally, and whether or not I prefer lifting in a heeled shoe versus a flat shoe. It doesn't have anything to do with necessarily this particular shoe. It's just I'm still kind of up in the air whether or not I prefer squatting in a heeled versus a flat shoe. But I definitely enjoy squatting in these. These are definitely nice shoes to squat in as well. I'm not going to bore you with a whole bunch of details on this thing and specifications. You can go look that up on Reebok's website or go watch some other review that dives real deep into all the nuances of the shoe. But, you know, the TLDR of it is, this is a fantastic lifting shoe if you are looking for a dedicated lifting shoe with a flat sole. The sole isn't terribly thick or tall, I should say. So, you know, that's ideal generally for the deadlift because it puts you a little bit closer to the ground, shortens your range of motion a little bit. The sole is nice and stiff and sturdy, so it's not too compressible. What the shoe essentially does, it's basically like it's like a Chuck Taylor except purpose-built for lifting. Chuck Taylors have always been a very popular lifting shoe, particularly for people who prefer lifting in a flat sole. They're cheap, and they actually generally work pretty good for the purpose. However, Chuck Taylors, they're not designed to be a lifting shoe. So there's some drawbacks to using a Chuck Taylor. But these are basically a Chuck Taylor, you know, in design, if you will, except it's specifically built for lifting. And there's definitely certain aspects of it that make it superior to something like a Chuck Taylor. Number one, the actual body of the shoe itself is pretty thick and sturdy, so you're not going to have problems with your with like the outside of your foot pushing out over the sole, which is typically a problem with Chuck Taylors because they're generally like a little thin canvas for the body of the shoe. One interesting thing about the soles of these shoes as well is it's going to be hard for you to see this, but it has these little ridges along the outside of the sole, so that way for people, particularly for you guys who are real big sumo deadlifters, particularly really wide sumo deadlifters, when you're really abducting your your legs and really pushing those feet out. These little ridges here prevent the outside of your foot from rolling over the sole, which is very common for things, again, like a Chuck Taylor that's not built to be a lifting shoe. Also, the sole is very, very, very sticky. It just grips the platform really, really well, and you're not going to slip around in these shoes. Again, this is really important for someone who is, again, primarily a sumo deadlifter, because when you have that really wide stance and you're really trying to twist those feet out, if your shoe's slipping around, that can be very, very annoying. Now, I'm not a big sumo deadlifter. I do sumo deadlifts. I'm primarily a conventional guy for a variety of reasons I won't dive into here. So it's not really a problem that I've ever had, but these shoes definitely stick to the platform, and if you've always had problems with your shoes slipping, you won't have that problem with these shoes. These things are just glued to the platform. It's also really beneficial for squats to actually have that as well, because you do abduct your feet out during the squat. And again, slippy shoes can be pretty annoying if your feet are slipping outwards during the descent or the ascent. So yeah, very grippy sole, which is very nice. Some things I don't like about it. It's kind of pricey for what it is. I believe I paid around $90 for this, which isn't a horrible price, particularly if you are comparing to other lifting shoes, particularly heeled shoes. Now, heeled shoes can definitely run over $100 for good pairs, but those are more complicated in design because they have metatarsal straps. They have typically stacked leather heels. There's a more complicated design. This is a very simple design because it's just a flat-soled shoe. It's incompressible, but overall it's a very basic design. $90, it can be a little stiff of a price for it, but it's a dedicated lifting shoe, so I don't think you're going to be walking around the mall with these. So assuming that you take care of them and you only use them for lifting, they're going to last you a really, really long time. One other thing I don't like about them too is the laces are really, really long. They're too long, actually. Now, I personally am not a big fan of high tops in general, which obviously these are a high top design. So I don't lace them up all the way. As you can see, my top two eyes are empty. That's because I'm just generally not a fan of high tops, so I just tie them up low and just keep the high top rather loose. It's just a personal preference, personal comfort preference for me. But even if I lace these up all the way to the top, the laces are still too long, and you tend to step on them and stuff, which can be kind of annoying. I'll probably end up replacing these laces and just putting something a little shorter on them because stepping on your laces can be a little annoying. One other thing you might not like about them, now just coming to my mind, is there's really only one color option, which is this right here, which is better than what they used to have. Just before I bought these, it used to have this really ugly, dog shit ugly zebra pattern type look to them, which was just horrendously ugly. But then they swapped to this, which, I like it. I have really no complaints about it. But you really only have this one option. So if you're someone who likes to have really flashy shoes or likes to, pick from different customization options, if you will, you don't get this with this shoe, at least at the time of this recording. It's just this one color. So if that's a big deal to you, then now you know. One other thing that I like before I wrap this up is actually the toe box itself is laid down flat. So with a lot of shoes, particularly like casual shoes, the toe box is elevated a little bit, which just makes, for a casual shoe, makes it a little bit easier to walk in and stuff. However, for a lifting shoe, it's actually nice to have the toe box flat on the ground because it gives you more contact on the ground. And for some people who like to cue themselves to press their toes into the floor, that can be a nice feature for you as well. So yeah, if you are looking for a good lifting flat, definitely consider these. One of my favorite lifting shoes of all time right now. Again, these are the Reebok Power Lite Mids, if I'm not mistaken. Again, they're Reeboks, and they're pretty hard to miss. So definitely consider these if you are looking for a nice lifting flat. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this video helpful, informative, and entertaining. If you did, be sure to like, subscribe, or follow depending on where you're watching this. You can follow me on Instagram at Tyler_MidgardStrength, and I am also on Zion. My two community pages are Midgard Strength and Conditioning and Gungnir Strategic. You can scan their respective codes here or search for them on the community search page. If you like my strength and conditioning content, check out my podcast, the Classical Strength Podcast, available on all major podcast platforms. Finally, if you would like to become stronger and healthier than you've ever been in your life, consider hiring me as your coach. I offer the most effective and personalized online coaching in the industry. So if that's something that would interest you, visit my website, midgardstrength.com, or you can email me directly at tyler@midgardstrength.com. Thanks for watching.